Good morning to all. Dear Presidents, distinguished guests, cher Président, warm welcome to this press event. And today we will witness the announcement of the first beneficiaries of the Vaccine Technology Transfer Initiative. And before I give the floor to our first speakers, I invite you to watch a 1-minute video to show you what the mRNA Vaccine Technology Transfer Hub is in practice. Please.
The mRNA Vaccine Technology Transfer Hub is a global initiative aiming to empower low and middle-income countries and allow them to make their own vaccines and to build capacity for quality manufacturing. The hub at Afrigen in Cape Town, South Africa has already established mRNA vaccine production at laboratory scale and is currently in the validation process. Working in partnership, the hub will share technical know-how with vaccine manufacturers that the World Health Organization has selected across the 6 WHO regions. 6 of these manufacturers are in Africa. WHO and partners will train the necessary workforce across the value chain and will provide support to build the human capital needed. The medicines patent pool will assist with intellectual property management and, when necessary, licensing. Ultimately, the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub will promote access to vaccines for everyone, strengthen health security, and promote self-reliance for the future.
And I have now the pleasure to announce Dr. Tedros from the WHO. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Moderator. Your Excellency, President Macron, Excellency President Macky Sall, Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Excellency President Kenyatta, Excellency President Buhari, Excellency President Said, Excellency President Michel, and Excellency President von der Leyen, Excellencies, colleagues and friends. Good morning, bonjour, and it's an honor to be here with you. It's incredible to think that just over 2 years since COVID-19 began spreading, there are now multiple safe and effective vaccines against it, and more than 10 billion doses have been administered globally. The tragedy, of course, is that billions of people are yet to benefit from these life-saving tools. Currently, 116 countries are off track for our shared target of vaccinating 70% of the population of every country by the middle of this year. More than 80% of the population of Africa is yet to receive a single dose. Much of this inequity has been driven by the fact that globally vaccine production is concentrated in a few mostly high-income countries. One of the most obvious lessons of the pandemic, therefore, is the urgent need to increase local production of vaccines, especially in low and middle-income countries. That's why, in April last year, WHO issued a call for expressions of interest for establishing a technology transfer hub for mRNA vaccines. The aim of the hub is to provide a facility where manufacturers from low and lower middle income countries can receive training in how to produce certain vaccines and the licenses to do so. In June last year, we announced our decision to establish the hub in South Africa. As a partnership between WHO, Afrigen Biologics, the Biologicals and Vaccines Institute of South Africa, or BioVac, the South African Medical Research Council, the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Medicines Patent Pool. As you remember, last year's visit by President Macron was a milestone in that process. And we very much appreciate the strong support for the hub from Belgium, Canada, the European Union, France, Germany, and Norway. And I was honored to have the opportunity to visit the hub last week with Minister Miriam Kitter of Belgium. Also met with President Ramaphosa. And it is already producing results with Afrigen's announcement that it has produced its own mRNA vaccine based on publicly available information about the composition of an existing vaccine. After visiting the institution and met with President Ramaphosa, felt that the hub is in good hands. A strong commitment of leadership from His Excellency President Ramaphosa, and also a strong commitment from all the institutions and the ecosystem for the hub is very, very strong. We expect clinical trials to start in the fourth quarter of this year, with approval expected in 2024. But this process can be speeded up. There are other options that the hub is exploring. We expect the benefits of this initiative will extend far beyond COVID-19 by creating a platform for vaccines against other diseases, including malaria, tuberculosis, and even cancer. So this is a strategic investment, not just for COVID, but for all the major health problems that we face. And the hub will be not just for South Africa, it's for Africa and for the whole world, because the spokes will be distributed all over the world. Today, I'm delighted to announce the first 6 African countries that will receive technology from the hub to produce their own mRNA vaccines: Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia. WHO will work with the companies and the government in each country to develop a roadmap for training and production based on their needs and capacities. We're very honored to be joined today by the presidents of all 6 countries, as well as President Macron, President Charles Michel, and President Ursula von der Leyen. The leadership and support of the European Union, the European Commission, and the European Council have all been essential in bringing us to this point. So I'd like to say thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. And thank you all, and we look forward to working with all of you to make this project a success for the healthier, safer, and fairer Africa we all want. I was saying yesterday, for this project, the only option we have is success. Failure is not an option, and I can see the commitment of all our leaders here. Thank you, and back to you.
Thank you, Director General. J'invite le président du Conseil européen.
I'd now like to call on the President of the European Council to take the floor. Yes, thank you very much indeed to you, Dr Tedros, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen. It's a huge pleasure for the European Union, together with Ursula von der Leyen, to be a stakeholder in this. I think Dr Tedros gave us a perfect overview of the project and the context of the project. I think the COVID pandemic showed the injustice and weaknesses in the world, but the crisis also meant a leap forward in terms of solidarity and teamwork, and we were very happy to be able to contribute to something which is on the basis of African leadership and will and initiative, so that we sat around the same table, listened to each other, listened to expectations and the kind of capacities and resources that we could make available, so that we could have technology transfer taking place in a few months, so as to allow a strategic sector such as the pharmaceutical sector to develop. I'm not going to speak at length. I just wanted to say that you can count on the European Union to expand its way of working, to expand its capacity, so that Africa can be a continent that develops strategic production capacities in healthcare, in vaccines. Thank you.
President. President of South Africa, Mr. Ramaphosa, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, We are really delighted to be part of this announcement this morning, to in many ways share our experience as the first WHO mRNA hub in Africa. The WHO has listened to what we have been saying, listened to our collective call to establish COVID-19 manufacturing sites in low and middle income countries in the midst of a vaccine inequality that we've always been talking about. The WHO is facilitating the establishment of this mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub in South Africa that will use a hub and spoke model to transfer a comprehensive technology package and provide what I'd call appropriate training to a selected number of manufacturers in other African and low, medium income countries also around the world. We welcome the announcement of the African spokes, they being Kenya, Tunisia, Nigeria, Senegal, and Egypt. We could not be happier. Of course, as Africans, we always want more. And we all hope that there will be more in time to come, because we don't want any African country to be left behind. So, Dr. Tedros, I'd like you to keep thinking about where more should be done. Now, since South Africa was selected to host this hub, we, in the process, have learned a lot. We have learned that the value of a well-functioning ecosystem that includes universities, research institutes, public health institutes, as well as pharmaceutical companies themselves and regulatory bodies is what works best, because through that you establish an ecosystem so that if there are any faults, if there are any mistakes, they are picked up by the knowledge and expertise of all these bodies. Institutions in the ecosystem should work in a coordinated and collaborative manner and bring complementary expertise and skills. And I say this advisedly so that our peer countries should also be able to find ways of including other complementary bodies that can assist. Working together has massive benefits. For example, that partnership between Afrigen and the University of Witwatersrand is very beneficial because VETS has been working on the mRNA technology for the past 10 years in Johannesburg. Consequently, between Afrigen and the university, they created an mRNA vaccine within 2 months. We have also learned that setting up these hubs goes beyond establishing production processes. It should also extend to the development of human resources, human capital across the borders, where we will easily be able to find our scientists working across South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Kenya, and all these other countries. For example, the partnership between South Africa and Nigeria in genomic surveillance has led to the training of students from across the continent, a number of countries. Quality control is key to manufacturing success, ensuring that the standard operating procedures for production do in the end meet regulatory standards. In South Africa, full operationalization of the mRNA has been hampered by intellectual property barriers. Now, this for us is a serious matter. This could occur in other countries with the potential to host the spokes. The WHO and Medicines Patent Pool, with the assistance of the European and African governments, are working to secure funding as well as intellectual property rights for Afrigen and its partners to establish the hub. Another challenge related to the IP barriers is the failure to transfer technology to the hub through non-exclusive licenses to produce as well as to export and distribute the COVID-19 vaccines in low and middle income countries, including through the COVAX facility. The lack of a market for vaccines produced in Africa is something that should be concerning to all of us. Organizations such as COVAX and Gavi need to commit to buying vaccines from local manufacturers instead of going outside of those hubs that will have been set up to go and buy vaccines for distribution to the African continent again. They need to then buy and commit that they will buy from the locally produced hubs once they get going. This will enhance the spirit of Africa's determination to enhance biotech sovereignty. Unless Africa has a vaccine market, marketing vaccines will soon collapse. Right now we say COVAX and Gavi rather, because they are the biggest buyers of vaccines in the world. We cannot continue being consumers of medical countermeasures for disease produced at high prices that are not affordable to our continent. Now, I come to an uncomfortable point. The TRIPS waiver, which we've been arguing for, when approved, or should I say, which will soon be approved, will ensure freedom to operate for entities with the requisite capacity and provide a platform to upgrade existing capabilities. In addition, it will facilitate the diversification of production to geographical regions that are currently cut out of the manufacturing value chains. Governments that are serious about vaccine access, and let me repeat, governments that are really serious about ensuring that the world has access to vaccines should ensure that we approve the TRIPS waiver as we've put forward. Rather than hide behind IP, the profitability of the originators, we are facing a global pandemic that will stay with us for a long time. And all that has been asked for is that the TRIPS waiver should be done within a set period of time so as to enable those countries that do not have easy access to vaccines to have access to vaccines. And we are talking about the lives of millions, hundreds of millions of people, rather than the profitability of the few companies. It is not acceptable that Africa is consistently at the back of the queue in relation to access to medicines. While we appreciate the donations, they are never a sustainable way or mechanism to build resilience. Yes, we accept what assistance we have received, but it is not sustainable. Help to empower us. Let us tackle obstacles together and demonstrate to the world that Africa has the ability, the scientists and industries to provide the vaccines, the therapeutics and diagnostics needed to manage African health. And let me say as I end, as COVID-19 champion for the African Union, we set up a commission. Your Excellencies, I've been amazed, pleasantly amazed, at the number of scientists we've got on the African continent. They have just come out of the woodworks, and they are demonstrating enormous capability. And those are the people whose energy we need to unleash, because they are willing, ready, and prepared to work for their continent. And all we need to do at this level is to do the TRIPS waiver, to empower them, and yes, to follow in the lead of the WHO and just give them that energy and that oxygen so that they can surge forward and do wonders for this continent. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madame la Présidente, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much indeed. I think this is a symbol today for the new partnership we have embarked on. And we have been indeed talking a lot about producing mRNA vaccines in Africa, but I think this goes far beyond. This is mRNA technology designed in Africa, led by Africa, and owned by Africa, with the support of Team Europe. And indeed, we are so deeply convinced of the potential you, dear Cyril, were just describing, that from the very first moment on, we have backed this initiative without any hesitation and teamed up with you and the WHO to set up this technology transfer hub. I think the emphasis has to be on technology transfer. We invest 40 million euros as the Commission with Germany, France and Belgium because we are deeply convinced it's the right way to go. And indeed, I consider this not only as a major step forward in the fight against the pandemic, but also as a major step forward in Africa's strategic sovereignty when it comes to vaccines. We all know the state of play today. Today, of all the vaccines applied in Africa, 1% is produced in Africa, of all the vaccines. And rightly so, the goal is in 2040 to have reached a level of 60% of vaccines produced in Africa that are administered in Africa. And this is the precondition. And here, indeed, I think, dear Cyril, it is important that, as you said, we limit with this technology transfer the profitability of the IP owners, that is the companies, that was the point you were blaming, while protecting a very precious good, and this is the intellectual property, what scientists have developed. And here I think we can find a bridge. The goal is really to make sure that the technology is transferred and dismantled and shown in full scope. And for that, we think that compulsory licensing with limited, deeply cut profits might be a bridge we go together. I see too that at the technology transfer hub at the moment being, we are not there yet. Because I heard very well that you, Dr. Tedros, my friend, said publicly available information. This is not enough. There needs to be the in-depth information about a technology. So we have a common goal. I think we are able to manage to create the regulatory frame that is necessary to really make it happen that the strategic sovereignty of Africa concerning vaccines is being developed and given. There's a second point that is outstanding with this hub and spoke model, that is that it's not only about science, it is a lot about skills, it is about high quality jobs, and indeed, it was mentioned, it is about the regulatory environment for the whole of Africa, that the African Union, for example, is now developing with the African Medicines Agency and the African CDC. You see the complexity of the project. You see the groundbreaking initiative, completely a new approach towards an attitude where the sovereignty of science is given and is protected while Africa has full access and full ownership. This is so important, of the technology and then the goods that come from that. So many thanks for that. It is a perfect example of what we are able to do when we join forces. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. J'invite le président de la
I should like to invite the President of the Republic to take the floor. Thank you very much, friends, ladies and gentlemen, Presidents. Everything has been said already, so I shall cut to the chase. I think this is an unprecedented opportunity for cooperation between Europe and Africa. It's unprecedented. Since the spring of 2020, we have built this this initiative. And then we managed to convince the other members of the G20. And through this initiative, we have been able to set up unprecedented forms of cooperation in exporting dose provision of test kits, and also working on primary healthcare systems. We have, I think, sometimes abandoned these goals over the recent decades. We see the results now. Europe has been working with you. We have produced more and more, and we have exported and given much more than other powers, even at the peak of the crisis. What we need to do now is to move forward to Africa becoming more sovereign in this regard. And I think that this is what we want. We want a fair partnership. We know what the figures are. We were together with President Ramaphosa when we talked about laying the foundations for this. The African continent, as you have said, don't just want to receive the doses. You want to be able to produce them yourselves. And 1 month later, Dr. Tedros, here we are launching this initiative today. So, first of all, congratulations to the 6 presidents from the African continent who are here today for their commitment and their work, so that they will have the mRNA messenger transfer technology. Thank you to the partners. France will be contributing €20 million. Thank you to the President, to other countries, and obviously we'll make experts available from the French Development Agency. And I think this is a fantastic opportunity for new forms of cooperation. For the first hub in South Africa, we have BioVac, we have academics, BioVac for the industry side, the WHO, European financing, and patent medicines as well. And I'd like to congratulate Marie-Paul Kenny in particular from the teams. She's done a fantastic job, and without these people, this wouldn't have happened. Now, looking at the short term, it's not intellectual property which is preventing production. It's technology transfer being made. We need people in the factories so that you know where the money can be sent. Many European countries don't have this technology, so we're doing this in the right order. We first donated doses so that vaccinations could continue. Now we're launching these technology transfer hubs so that we can develop the manufacturing sites for mRNA messenger. And now President von der Leyen is right. We need to have optimum cooperation so that we can even transfer the most confidential information so that you can produce as quickly as possible. And then we need the purchasing commitment locally but internationally as well. I think that the point raised by President Ramaphosa was very important. You can't have continued purchasing of doses elsewhere. Then there's the issue of intellectual property. And I hope the discussion this morning will enable us to make progress on that. The goal we want to pursue is to ensure that IP isn't set up as an obstacle to distributing vaccines where they're needed. Now, we know about the TRIPS waiver and the implications of that. Things haven't changed since discussions in South Africa on that before. We know about this, and now it may be the case that no manufacturers in France are affected by this, but it's very important that we respect this. IP should never be a brake on the dissemination of knowledge. And that's the way forward. I think the idea of compulsory licensing, as referred to by the President, is one way forward. The WTO working with the WHO is another way forward. So just to sum up then, we have achieved this goal of making donations. Now we are succeeding with the technology transfer hub. We need to succeed in transferring know-how, And now we want to ensure that intellectual property is not something which stands in the way of continued cooperation, of innovation. Now, with our battle against COVID-19, we've seen things that we had seen with battles against all pandemics or other diseases in Africa. And we need to make progress, further progress. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that even if we do achieve the goal of combating and fighting COVID-19, the African continent has other diseases that will require vaccination. So the fight we are in today is a fight which will last above and beyond, or beyond COVID-19. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much. May I kindly ask you to take a step backwards, de mettre un peu en retrait. We will clean the lecterns, and I would like to invite, please, the presidents of the beneficiary countries to please join us on the podium, and that is the President Macky Sall from Senegal, President Al-Sisi from Egypt, President Kenyatta from Kenya, President Buhari from Nigeria, and President Sayed from Tunisia. Please, may we welcome you on stage. Please. It's okay, thank you. Thank you very much. May I first invite President Macky Sall from Senegal to take the floor, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank our colleagues Emmanuel Macron, Cyril Ramaphosa, Charles Michel, Ursula von der Leyen and Dr Tedros, the Director General of the WHO, for this fantastic initiative of us meeting here about this technology transfer programme as a part of our common efforts to bridge the vaccination gap by producing mRNA vaccines in Africa. I think it's an excellent practical exercise, cooperation and action on building on the lessons that we've learned from the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're particularly delighted that we, as beneficiary countries, will be able to share experience that has already been acquired in Africa, because Cape Town has the first technology transfer hub. So, Brother Cyril, thank you very much to you for your generous offer.
Your experience as a first hub in Africa. Je remercie non.
I'd like to thank our European partners as well, through you, Emmanuel and Charles and Ursula. I'd like to thank you for this support in technology transfer, a specific area really of technology transfer during a pandemic which is of course still ongoing. I'd also like to thank Dr Tedros. Thank you very much for your commitment, time and effort.
Hier, or just yesterday, avec le président Paul Kagame et Nana
Paul Kagame and Nana Boko from Ghana, I went to Marburg in Germany as part of a partnership that we want to develop with BioNTech in the same area. And I think that we, together on this planet, are doing everything we can to enable the African continent to produce vaccines as well. And I would like us to remain committed to producing vaccines. The Pasteur Institute in Dakar has an initiative already called Makeba, referring to Nelson Mandela, of course. this has been supported by the government of Senegal and also Team Europe and the German Fund and the United States. And this Pasteur Institute is creating a vaccinopolis in our country to produce vaccines using traditional methods on the one hand, but also indeed to adapt the messenger RNA technology as well. So this is a project. Our aim, of course, is to have 60% of vaccines given in Africa, that they be produced in Africa as well. And obviously we need to be able to buy vaccines that have been produced in Africa, as was said. So Gavi, European Union, also African countries that have vaccination programs. Between ourselves, we can contract purchases from these new laboratories and these new factories to ensure that this African production is nurtured, because these vaccines will be produced elsewhere more cheaply, of course, and so it's important that above and beyond technology transfer, we also then purchase the vaccines. Obviously, intellectual property is an issue as well, but I think the urgency now is that this technology transfer takes place and that we pool our efforts for regulation and to bring on board the African Medicines Agency and get their approval. So thank you very much. I think that this is a great day for Africa and for Europe and for our summit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, President. May I invite President Al-Sisi to take the floor?
شكرا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب الفخامة السادات والسادة.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, friends, allow me to say that this is a symbolic day for us. It's a day full of hope and happiness for us. And this is a common goal that we are pursuing. We have all been taken by surprise with this pandemic, everybody in the world. And that is why we are making an effort to combat the pandemic. Of course, all this has taken time. However, in Africa, maybe we are slightly behind, but the main thing is that we achieve our goals. So, ladies and gentlemen, I should like to thank you for having chosen Egypt as a beneficiary to receive the support in producing the mRNA messenger vaccines, as well as other vaccines one day, to stem the flow of pandemics and disease. This work today is a symbol of what we can do with international solidarity and medical solidarity, so that we can take up international challenges. And we have the political resolve to do this. We have a common destiny, and thanks to the efforts of France and African banks as well in the past, we have been able to lay out a common vision to support the African continent and obtain the necessary technology to produce vaccines. Thank you also to the WHO for having cooperated with us and helped our countries in Africa to overcome some economic and social challenges that we faced above and beyond the pandemic itself. In the long term, this will lessen the impact of the pandemic. And Egypt has received support, also has provided support to invest in this area, and we are prepared now to take on this new technology and use it. We hope to be able to make vaccines available in Egypt and also in other African countries so that we can help African citizens. One final thing I should say is that this help that we're receiving in Africa is a very good measure in getting immunity across the board. And I should like to thank the international donors and ask them to increase their efforts even further to assist African countries who need it, who need financial support so that we can meet their medical needs and ensure that vaccines are distributed in a fairer way, particularly given the economic and social situation in each country. Thank you.
Presidents, I invite President Kenyatta from Kenya to take the floor. May I please ask you to be short because the roundtables, I've been told, have just started.
Thank you very much, and I'll be as short as possible. And begin by recognizing Your Excellencies, Dr. Tedros, and everybody here present, and to state that today really marks a new dawn, a dawn of hope and promise for the African continent, and indeed all her people. As one of the region's leaders also in biomedical research, Kenya is truly honored today to be listed as one of the beneficiary countries of the mRNA Technology Transfer Program, and this is indeed a testament to the caliber of the scientists present within our institutions across our region and indeed the entire African continent. This announcement also announces and demonstrates the power of partnership to change the trajectory of Africa's health security for the better. Indeed, as soon as WHO announced the emergence of this novel pathogen, we witnessed an unprecedented scramble for medical supplies necessary to mount an effective response and save lives. The global supply chain, as we all know, and one that we had prior depended on, failed to meet the increasing demand, and it soon became the case of the wealthiest countries having the best chance of accessing life-saving commodities. And this, if we recall history, was a case with HIV, and it was once again history repeating itself. In many ways, the COVID-19 pandemic was a wake-up call for many countries. As African heads of state, serving a population of 1.2 billion people, we were confronted with the unacceptable reality that 99% of vaccines were sourced from outside our continent, despite Africa accounting for 25% of global vaccine needs. Therefore, today's event is without a doubt an immense and of historic significance. The Technology Transfer Program, once successfully implemented, will without doubt set Africa on a sustainable path of self-sufficiency in terms of vaccine supply. Let me also say that it is my fervent desire that this collaboration will be explored also in other areas such as the manufacture of medical devices, biosimilars, and other emerging areas of biomedical research. As a global community, perhaps the most significant effect it may have will be to rebuild public trust in the ability of multilateralism to come together to address humanity's most pressing challenges. This is the time for all of us to build back better, and let us spare no effort and guarantee our future generations a healthier and a much more sustainable world. We look forward to the leadership of South Africa in leading the way, and we hope to join soon. We thank the WHO. We thank you, President Macron, for your passion, and indeed, our greatest gratitude also to Team Europe. Thank you very much.
A big thank you, President from Kenya. Now I invite the President of Nigeria to take the floor, please.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria is very grateful. COVID-19 has been more or less considerate on Nigeria. The figures that show are quite low for those infected, and we express our gratitude to the President of France, especially, for giving us a lot of the COVID vaccines, which we try very hard to make sure that we have the storage so that they don't get expired quickly, and effect of the heat of the weather there, we try to make those logistics available, and we are mobilizing our health workers to make sure that the rural areas that are far and wide are reached, and we are very pleased that the amount of work being done is quite satisfactory. Thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you, President. And may I invite now the President of Tunisia to take the floor.
أصحاب السعادة والسمو أود أن أتوجه.
Excellencies, first of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you who organised this summit. I would like in particular to thank the European Union, the European Commission, France, the French President Emmanuel Macron. And the reason that I'm saying this is because we presented a similar initiative to the Security Council, and a decision was taken unanimously to adopt the Franco-Tunisian initiative. From the outset, we have tried to approach this crisis, this new unprecedented crisis for humanity, and we've tried to approach this with a new approach of security and peace, different to what was the situation in the United Nations and other international organizations beforehand. And after the Security Council resolution was adopted, we were able to conclude a number of agreements and conventions with leaders, with world leaders. And these initiatives were highlighted. They were used to address the challenges of the COVID pandemic. And Tunisia has made continuous efforts to adopt a humanitarian approach to tackling this crisis. You'll recall, of course, how borders were closed at a certain stage and countries were entirely isolated from other countries. It was like time had gone backwards, basically. And I would like to thank all of those who have tried to face up to this new problem and overcome these problems. Because we've got really a world before COVID and after COVID, like before Christ and after Christ. It's before COVID and after COVID. Now, and I think that the solution to address these problems is technology transfer, because 60 years, 70 years after independence, African countries haven't shown record levels of growth, particularly given that a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors actually come from African countries and then work in countries in the northern hemisphere. And we have the figures to back this up. We've got doctors who left Tunisia and go to work in Italy, for example. And the Prime Minister of Italy also said that there are so many Africans who are affected and infected. We need to pray to God to address this, and we need to face up to this humanitarian crisis together with determination. We also need to combat other pandemics which are ravaging the African continent. There are many diseases in the African continent. And the number of deaths linked to COVID is alarming, certainly, but there are other deaths as well. Deaths because of the deteriorating healthcare situation that we're seeing in a lot of our African countries. And today is a historic day, and I would like to thank everybody once again. But we need to write history. We need to face up to future pandemics and prepare for that and establish fruitful cooperation between ourselves and find new mechanisms other than the deficient mechanisms that we seem to have now, and as was shown by the COVID pandemic. I'd like to thank France, the European Union and the other beneficiary countries, and we hope that we'll be able to create these innovative mechanisms that we need. Thank you to you once again. Thank you to all of you who've contributed to this initiative. And Tunisia will be up to the challenge. It will be one of the vaccine producer countries. Obviously, there are a number of challenges that we are facing. There's intellectual property. There are other issues as well. But we need, of course, to overcome these challenges, because intellectual property, when it comes to issues that are relevant to the whole of humanity, needs to be resolved. We need to adopt a different approach compared to all of the conventional approaches that we have had in the past relating to intellectual property. So thank you once again to all of you. I'd like to thank the President of France, Mr. Emmanuel Macron. Thank you very much to you. I would also like to thank the European Union for all that it has done. And we will face this hand in hand. We will build a better future together for the whole of humanity. Thank you very much to all of you, and may Allah's peace be upon you.
May I invite you to stand in front of the lecterns now so that we can take a nice family photo to celebrate the occasion. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wishing you a successful summit.